Welcome back to Librihouse Podcast, everybody.
Let's have you.
Before we get started, I just want to mention,
Okay.
if you're really enjoying this deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
you might want to check out the full book.
Sounds good.
It's called Stoic Meditations, Lessons from Marcus Aurelius.
Okay.
And it's available on Apple Books and Google Play Books
Awesome.
by Librihouse.
All right.
And of course, if you love the show,
Yes,
please hit that like button.
definitely.
Share it with a friend who you think would enjoy it.
Good idea.
And subscribe for more daily podcasts and book reviews.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Sounds good.
Today,
Yes.
we're taking a deep dive into Stoicism,
All right.
specifically the teachings of Marcus Aurelius,
Okay.
and how they're surprisingly relevant to your life today.
You got it.
We'll be exploring his personal writings,
Mm-hmm.
meditations,
Okay.
alongside some modern interpretations from Lessons from Meditations by Stoic Marcus Aurelius.
All right.
Get ready for some serious aha moments.
So what's so fascinating about Marcus Aurelius
Oh.
is that he wasn't just some philosopher
Right.
sitting in an ivory tower.
Yeah.
He was an emperor of Rome,
Wow.
dealing with wars and betrayals,
Really?
even a pandemic.
No.
So-
Sound familiar?
A pandemic, too.
It's true.
Okay, this is already getting relatable.
And that's why I think his writings have resonated
Okay.
for centuries.
Right.
Because he was grappling with these universal human struggles,
Mm-hmm.
stress,
Yeah.
anxiety,
Right.
loss,
Of course.
this search for meaning.
Yes.
These are things we all face,
Yeah.
no matter what century we live in.
Right. So how did this Roman emperor use Stoicism
Yeah.
to not just survive,
Mm,
but actually thrive
right,
in such a chaotic world?
right.
And more importantly, how can we apply those same principles
Mhm.
to our lives today?
So let's start with one of the core principles of Stoicism, focusing on what you can control.
Okay.
It's this idea.
That while we can't always control external events,
Right.
we can control our thoughts,
Mm.
actions, and
You know-
reactions to them.
That sounds great in theory,
Sure.
honestly.
Yeah,
It's easier said than done right.
definitely.
I mean, how do you just let go of things you can't
Mhm.
control when they're stressing you out?
It's definitely a practice.
Okay.
Not a quick fix.
Right.
But think about it this way.
Okay.
Imagine you're prepping for a big job interview.
All right.
You can control how much you prepare,
Mhm.
how well you research the company,
Okay.
even what you wear,
Right.
but you can't control what questions they'll ask
Right.
or whether you'll ultimately get the job.
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
So by focusing on what I can control,
Mhm.
like my preparation,
Right.
I can at least feel more confident
Exactly.
and less anxious going into it.
It's such a powerful shift
Yeah.
in perspective.
Wow. I never thought about it that way.
And it actually has a psychological basis.
Really?
When you focus on what you can control,
Mm-hmm.
you're shifting your attention away
Okay.
from the things that are causing you anxiety.
Right.
And that, in turn, can actually reduce your stress levels
Wow.
and give you a greater sense of agency,
Yeah.
even in situations where you might feel powerless.
So it's not about being passive.
Yeah.
It's about channeling your energy strategically.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
And this idea of strategically channeling your energy
Okay.
leads us to another key Stoic principle,
All right.
seeing obstacles as opportunities.
Okay.
There's a powerful quote from Marcus Aurelius that
Oh.
perfectly captures this.
Okay.
He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action.
Mm-hmm.
What stands in the way becomes the way."
So it's not about avoiding hardship,
Right.
but actually using it to grow
You got it.
and become stronger.
That's the Stoic mindset.
I like that.
Instead of seeing a setback as a failure,
Yeah.
you see it as a chance to learn,
Mm-hmm.
adapt,
Yeah.
and ultimately become more resilient.
Lessons from Meditations has this great example.
Okay.
Using a breakup.
Right.
Instead of just wallowing in sadness,
Yeah.
you ask yourself, what did I learn about myself in this relationship?
Right.
How can I be a better partner in the future?
Exactly.
It's about turning a painful experience
Yeah.
into a source of growth.
It's such a powerful reframing.
Yeah.
Think about how this applies to,
Okay.
say, a missed promotion at work.
Right.
Instead of feeling defeated,
Mm-hmm.
you could analyze what skills you might need to develop or consider whether your current path
Right.
truly aligns with your goals.
It's like using that initial disappointment
Mm-hmm.
as fuel to propel you forward.
You got it.
I'm starting to see how this Stoic mindset
Yeah,
could be incredibly helpful in
absolutely.
dealing with all sorts of challenges.
And speaking of challenges,
Okay.
Marcus Aurelius was keenly aware of one challenge we all face,
Right.
the limitations of time, he wrote, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years."
Wow.
He was basically saying, don't waste the precious time you have.
Okay, now that hits close to home.
Right.
Especially in today's world.
Yes.
We're constantly bombarded with distractions, social media, the news cycle, endless notifications.
Oh, true.
It feels impossible to stay focused on what truly matters.
And Lessons from Meditations actually tackles this directly. It tells the story of Jane,
Right.
this manager who is feeling completely overwhelmed by her responsibilities. And the book uses these Stoic principles to help her prioritize both her work goals and her personal life without feeling like she's constantly drowning.
So how did she do it? What's the secret to reclaiming your time amidst all the chaos?
It starts with recognizing
Okay.
that time is a finite resource. Once it's gone, it's gone.
Right.
And when you truly grasp that, it helps you become more intentional about how you spend every hour of your day.
So instead of passively scrolling through social media for hours, we consciously choose to spend that time on activities that align with our values and goals.
It's about making conscious choices.
Right.
Not just reacting to whatever pops up on our screens or demands our attention.
This is making me want to reevaluate how I'm spending my time.
It's about reclaiming control, like we were talking about earlier. And this idea of being present, of reclaiming control over your time, connects directly to another key principle from Marcus Aurelius, living in the now.
Right.
He wrote, confine yourself to the present.
So it's all about mindfulness, being fully present in this moment, rather than dwelling on the past or worrying about the future.
You got it.
It's about observing your thoughts and emotions without judgment.
Absolutely.
And fully engaging in whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Whether that's having a conversation, eating a meal, or even just taking a walk.
Lessons from Meditations gives this great example of Sarah, a marketing manager, who's feeling completely stressed out. And by incorporating these small, mindful practices into her day, like mindful eating, or taking a few moments to just breathe deeply, she actually transforms her experience.
It's amazing how seemingly small changes
It really is.
can make such a big difference.
And this is especially important in today's fast-paced world where we're constantly bombarded with stimulation. Mindfulness helps us create a sense of calm amidst the chaos.
This is all really resonating with me.
That's great.
But Stoicism isn't just about surviving, right?
Definitely not.
It's about thriving.
Absolutely.
So where do we find meaning in all of this? How do we lead a fulfilling life?
Marcus Aurelius believed in aligning with nature and fulfilling our purpose. And this purpose doesn't have to be some grand world-changing mission.
Of course.
It can be found in even the smallest actions.
So how do we apply this to our everyday lives?
Right.
I mean, how do you find purpose in, like, answering emails or attending meetings?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And Lessons from Meditations introduces us to Tom, who actually finds a sense of purpose in these seemingly mundane tasks. He focuses on doing each task to the best of his ability, viewing it as a contribution to the greater good.
Wow.
He sees his work as a way to serve others, even if it's in a small way.
That's such a powerful shift in perspective.
It really is.
It's about finding meaning in the everyday.
Exactly.
Rather than waiting for some big dramatic event to give our lives meaning.
And this mindset can be applied to anything.
Wow.
Making dinner, spending time with loved ones, even cleaning the house. It's about approaching everything with intention and purpose.
This is making me rethink.
That's the beauty of Stoicism.
Yeah.
It's a practical philosophy that can be applied to any situation.
Okay, this is all starting to click for me.
Great.
But there's one more thing I'm curious about.
Yeah.
Gratitude.
Okay.
How does that fit into the Stoic picture?
Gratitude is a cornerstone of Stoicism.
Okay.
It's about appreciating what we have rather than focusing on what we lack.
Right.
And this practice is incredibly powerful, especially during tough times. It helps us maintain perspective and stay grounded.
In Lessons from Meditations, we meet Lisa, who's dealing with a lot of hardship, loss, job stress, health issues.
Yeah, that's right.
But through gratitude, she finds a sense of strength and resilience.
Gratitude helps us shift our focus from lack to abundance. It helps us cultivate joy and contentment even when things are tough.
I can see how that would make a huge difference.
It does.
In how we experience the world.
It allows us to appreciate the good. Even in the midst of challenges.
This has been so insightful.
I'm glad.
Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, there's one more thing I'd love to explore.
Okay.
Self-discipline.
All right.
How did that fit into the Stoic framework?
Self-discipline was essential for the Stoics.
Okay.
Marcus Aurelius saw it as the key to living a virtuous life and making rational choices.
I remember Marcus Aurelius being a big believer in self-control.
Right.
He wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts."
He understood that our thoughts shape our reality and that mastering our thoughts requires discipline.
So it's not about denying ourselves pleasure, but about making choices that align with our values, even when it's difficult.
It's about having the willpower to say no to temptations and to stay focused on what's truly important.
Lessons from Meditations uses the example of James, who struggles with procrastination, to show how Stoicism can help us break bad habits and cultivate self-control.
It's a great example because it shows how James uses these Stoic techniques, mentally preparing for moments of weakness and focusing on what he can control to overcome procrastination.
So it's about having a strategy, not just relying on willpower alone.
The Stoics believed that self-discipline, like any skill, can be developed through practice and intention.
This has been an incredibly insightful dive so far. We've covered so much.
We have.
Controlling our emotions, finding meaning in the everyday, practicing gratitude, and cultivating self-discipline.
Absolutely.
We've just scratched the surface.
We have.
There's so much more to explore.
We'll dig in some more next time. Welcome back to our deep dive.
I'm so excited to continue this conversation.
Awesome.
The last part really got me thinking about how I can apply these Stoic principles to my own life.
That's great.
So in this part, we're going to be tackling a topic that's both fascinating and a bit daunting.
Okay.
Death.
That took a turn.
I know the Stoics had a very unique perspective on death.
They did.
But it's not exactly light conversation.
You're right, it's not.
But Stoicism doesn't really view death as something to be feared.
No, they don't.
Instead, it sees death as a natural part of life. Something to be accepted. Rather than dreaded.
So it's not about denying death. But about integrating it into our understanding of life.
Exactly. By accepting the reality of death, we can actually free ourselves to live more intentionally in the present moment.
That's the paradox of Stoicism, isn't it? By embracing the reality of death.
We can let go of the fear that holds us back from truly living.
So how does this play out in everyday life? I mean, it's not like we're all walking around thinking about death all the time.
Of course not.
But the Stoics practice this thing called memento mori. Which means remember, you will die.
That's right.
It's not about dwelling on death.
No.
But about using it as a gentle reminder to make the most of the time we have.
So it's like a nudge to prioritize what's truly important. To focus on our values, relationships, contributions to the world, rather than getting caught up in these trivial matters.
It encourages us to live with a sense of urgency and purpose.
Absolutely.
This has given me a whole new perspective on things, I have to admit. There's still a part of me that feels uneasy about death.
Sure.
It's natural to fear the unknown, right?
Absolutely. Fear is a natural human emotion.
Right.
But the Stoics teach that much of our fear of death
stems from a misunderstanding of what it actually is.
So it's not about eliminating fear, but about understanding it. And perhaps even reframing it.
Exactly. They believe that death is simply a return to nature. A part of the natural order of things. It's not something to be feared, but something to be accepted.
That's a really different way of looking at it.
It is.
But how do we apply this to real-life situations? Especially when we're facing loss or the possibility of our own death.
Lessons from Meditations shares the story of John. A man who is diagnosed with a serious illness.
Oh, wow.
And is understandably afraid.
Yeah.
And the book shows how he uses these Stoic principles to confront his fear and find a sense of peace.
That sounds incredibly powerful.
It is.
What were some of his takeaways?
Well, he starts by practicing memento mori.
Okay.
Reflecting on his mortality not as a source of fear,
right,
but as a reminder to live fully in the present. He also draws strength from this Stoic belief.
Yeah.
That death is a natural part of life.
Okay.
Not something to be resisted.
It's about finding peace in the midst of uncertainty.
It is.
That's really profound.
And by embracing the present moment, John is able to let go of his fear and focus on living with purpose and gratitude.
This is making me rethink my whole relationship with death.
I'm glad to hear that.
It's not about denying it.
Right.
But about using it as a catalyst to live more fully.
That's the essence of Stoicism.
Yeah.
It's about finding that strength and resilience in the face of life's challenges,
right,
including death.
This has been a heavy,
it has,
but important conversation.
It is.
I feel like I'm starting to understand the Stoic perspective on death.
Good. I'm glad.
And that understanding can be incredibly liberating.
It can.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about another important aspect of Stoic living. Solitude.
Solitude.
I have a complicated relationship with being alone.
Really?
Sometimes I crave it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels lonely.
That's understandable.
Our culture often equates solitude with loneliness.
Yes.
But the Stoics saw it differently.
They did.
They viewed solitude as a source of strength and a time for reflection.
I remember Marcus Aurelius talking about solitude in his writings. He actually wrote much of Meditations while he was alone on these military campaigns.
Yeah.
He often sought solitude as a way to reconnect with himself and his values. He wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul."
So it's about creating a space for inner peace and reflection.
Yeah.
A time to detach from the distractions of the world and go inward.
Exactly. It's a time to check in with yourself, to examine your thoughts, actions, and to reconnect with your inner compass.
But isn't there a danger of becoming too isolated?
Sure.
I mean, we are social creatures after all.
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
But the Stoics weren't advocating for complete isolation.
Right.
It's about finding a balance between connecting with others and carving out time for yourself.
So it's about being intentional with our time.
Absolutely.
And creating space for both social connection and solitude.
Exactly. And the benefits of solitude are numerous.
Okay.
It allows us to reflect on our thoughts and actions.
Yeah.
To reconnect with nature and to develop this sense of self-sufficiency.
Lessons from Meditations uses the example of Emily, this young professional, who feels overwhelmed by the demands of city life.
Right.
And she incorporates these moments of solitude into her routine.
Okay.
And finds that it reduces her anxiety.
Yeah.
And helps her feel more grounded.
It's amazing how even small moments of solitude can have such a profound impact on our well-being. It's like hitting the reset button on our minds and bodies.
It really is. But what about people who find solitude difficult?
Any tips for those of us who struggle to be alone?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Start small. Even 5 or 10 minutes of quiet reflection each day can make a difference.
Okay.
Find a space where you feel comfortable and safe.
Yeah.
And simply allow yourself to be present.
Okay.
You can meditate, journal, or just sit in silence and observe your thoughts.
That sounds doable.
It is.
It's about creating a ritual, a space where we can reconnect with ourselves.
Yeah.
Without judgment or distraction.
Exactly. And over time, as you become more comfortable with solitude, you can gradually increase the amount of time you spend alone.
This is making me realize that solitude isn't about being lonely.
It's not.
But about creating a space for inner peace and growth.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And that inner growth is closely tied to self-discipline.
Absolutely.
Another cornerstone of Stoic philosophy.
It is.
Okay, let's talk about self-discipline.
All right.
I think that's something we all struggle with.
We do.
At some point.
But for the Stoics, self-discipline was essential for living a virtuous life.
Right. I remember Marcus Aurelius being a big believer in self-control.
He was.
He wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts."
He understood that our thoughts shape our reality.
Right.
And that mastering our thoughts requires discipline.
So it's not about denying ourselves pleasure.
It's not.
But about making choices that align with our values.
Exactly.
Even when they're difficult.
It's about having that willpower to say no to those temptations and to stay focused on what's truly important.
Lessons from Meditations uses the example of James,
right,
who struggles with procrastination,
right,
to show how Stoicism can help us break bad habits and cultivate self-control.
It's a great example because it shows how James uses those Stoic techniques, like mentally preparing for those moments of weakness and focusing on what he can control to overcome procrastination.
So it's about having a strategy.
Yes.
Not just relying on willpower alone.
The Stoics believed that self-discipline, like any skill, can be developed through practice and intention.
What are some practical tips for building self-discipline?
Sure.
Because it feels like such a daunting task sometimes.
Start by setting clear goals.
Okay.
This gives you something to strive for, a reason to exercise self-control.
Right.
And then break those goals down into smaller, manageable steps.
Right.
That way it feels less overwhelming.
That makes sense. It's like creating a roadmap to get where you want to go.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to embrace discomfort.
Okay.
The Stoics believe that voluntary discomfort, like taking cold showers or fasting, could actually strengthen willpower.
So it's about pushing our limits and building resilience.
It is.
Through these small acts of self-control.
Precisely. And remember, self-discipline is not about being perfect, but about making progress.
Right.
Every small step counts.
This is giving me a whole new perspective on self-discipline.
I'm glad to hear that.
It's not about punishment, but about empowerment.
That's the Stoic way.
Yeah.
It's about using self-discipline as a tool to create the life we want.
This has been another incredible deep dive.
It has.
Into Stoicism.
We've covered so much in this part.
Wow.
Death, solitude, and self-discipline. And there's still more to come.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Stoicism. I'm feeling so inspired by everything we've discussed so far.
I'm glad to hear that, and get ready for more, because today we're going to be tackling how Stoicism can help us deal with two major challenges of modern life.
Right.
Negativity and tough decisions.
Those are big ones. Especially negativity.
Yeah.
It feels like it's everywhere these days.
It's true. Negativity can be overwhelming, but the Stoics had some brilliant strategies for staying grounded even when we're surrounded by all that negativity.
Okay, all ears. What's the secret?
It comes back to that core principle of focusing on what you can control.
Okay.
Marcus Aurelius put it this way.
Yeah.
He said, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment.
So it's not about ignoring negativity, but about shifting how we respond to it.
Exactly. One powerful technique is emotional detachment.
Okay.
Instead of getting swept up in the negativity, try to observe it objectively.
Okay.
Almost like a scientist observing a phenomenon.
I like that analogy. So instead of getting angry or defensive, when someone criticizes me, I could try to just see it as their opinion.
Exactly.
Not a reflection of my worth.
And Lessons from Meditations offers a practical example of this with Alex.
Oh, right, Alex.
This project manager dealing with a difficult colleague.
Yes. His colleague Jessica was constantly criticizing him and undermining his work.
Instead of getting sucked into this cycle of conflict, Alex uses Stoic principles to stay grounded.
Okay.
He practices emotional detachment, reminding himself that he can't control Jessica's behavior, but he can control his response.
So he focuses on staying calm, setting boundaries, and not letting Jessica's negativity dictate his mood or actions.
Exactly. He even tries to empathize with Jessica,
Great.
considering what might be causing her negativity.
Wow.
And this helps him respond with compassion rather than anger.
That's a powerful approach. I'm going to try that next time I'm dealing with a difficult person. But negativity isn't always external, right?
Right.
What about when it's our own thoughts that are dragging us down?
Yes, the inner critic.
Yeah.
The Stoics had a technique for that too.
Okay.
Cognitive reframing.
Okay, I've heard that term before. Can you remind me what it is?
It's about challenging those negative thoughts and replacing them with more positive or realistic ones.
So instead of thinking I'm a failure, I might reframe it as I made a mistake, but I can learn from it.
Exactly. It's about consciously shifting our perspective.
Okay.
And choosing to focus on the positive, or at least the more constructive.
This is making me realize how much power we have over our own thoughts.
We do.
It's not about denying the negative,
right,
but about choosing how we frame it.
That's the Stoic empowerment. It's about taking control of our minds rather than letting our thoughts control us.
Okay. All of this is really sinking in. Now let's move on to that second big challenge.
Okay.
Making tough decisions. Life feels full of them.
It does. But don't worry, the Stoics have a roadmap for us here too.
Marcus Aurelius was known for his very thoughtful decision-making.
He was.
How did he approach those tough choices?
He always started by grounding himself in Stoic principles.
Okay.
Specifically the virtues of wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance.
So he used those virtues as a guiding framework for his decisions.
Exactly. He'd ask himself,
okay,
is this decision wise? Is it just, does it require courage?
Yeah.
Does it demonstrate temperance?
Okay.
And these questions helped him ensure that his choices aligned with his values.
That's a really powerful framework.
Yeah.
But what about when we're feeling overwhelmed by the options, unsure which path to take?
The Stoics had a technique for that too.
Okay.
Premeditation of evils.
Wait, we talked about that before.
You did.
Wasn't that about mentally preparing for challenges?
You're right.
Okay.
But it also applies to decision making.
Okay.
It's about thinking through the potential negative outcomes of each choice.
Okay.
Not to scare ourselves, but to prepare for any challenges that might arise.
So it's like a mental rehearsal, a way to objectively weigh the pros and cons.
Exactly. And it also helps us detach from the outcome a bit.
Okay.
If we've already considered the worst case scenario,
right,
we're less likely to be completely derailed if things don't go exactly as planned.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about when logic and emotion are at odds? How do we make rational decisions when we're feeling stressed or scared?
Lessons from Meditations has a great example of this with Lisa.
Oh, right.
Who's facing a conflict at work.
Yeah. Her colleague was taking credit for her ideas.
Yes.
I'd be furious.
Rightfully so. But instead of lashing out, Lisa uses Stoic principles to stay grounded.
Okay.
She practices emotional detachment.
Yeah.
Reminds herself she can't control her colleagues' actions.
Right.
And focuses on responding with clarity and reason.
So she chooses to address the issue calmly and professionally.
Exactly.
Rather than letting her anger dictate her actions.
It's a perfect example of how Stoic wisdom can help us make rational choices,
right,
even in those emotionally charged situations.
This is really hitting home for me. Stoicism isn't just some abstract set of ideas.
It's not.
It's a practical toolkit for dealing with the real-life challenges that we face every day.
That's what we hope to show you. Stoicism isn't just dusty philosophy.
Right.
It's a way of life that can help us navigate the complexities of the modern world with strength, resilience, and purpose.
I couldn't agree more. This entire deep dive has been transformative.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a whole new set of tools to deal with negativity, make tough choices, and live a more fulfilling life.
That's wonderful to hear. And remember, this is a journey, not a destination.
Okay.
The Stoics believed in continuous learning and growth.
So it's not about being perfect, but about striving to be a little bit better each day.
Exactly. And remember, the Stoics believe that wisdom comes not only from our own experiences, but also from learning from others.
Right. And if you're looking for a great place to learn more, be sure to check out Stoic Meditations, Lessons from Marcus Aurelius. It's available on Apple Books and Google Play Books by Librihouse. It's a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to delve deeper into Stoicism and its practical applications for modern life.
We hope this deep dive has inspired you to embrace the wisdom of the Stoics and to continue on your own journey of self-discovery and growth.
Thank you so much for listening to the Librihouse Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful content.
Until next time.